Our people were always industrious, hardworking, and found ways to make a living, to earn their living the old fashioned way by honest, hard work. Well, of course, there were some, and there are some, who do not believe in that. But I want to tell you about our hard working people, and specifically those who used to row the boats across the Carnage in Grenada. Well, you will note from my writings and my pieces, video pieces, that I always big up our hard-working farmers and our fishermen and others. But just to go back in time here, to the period when rowing a boat across the Carnage was an everyday occurrence. And students from the GBSS, Grenada Boys Secondary School, the Anglican High School, can tell you that some of them used to take the boats from one side of the wharf to the other side. Now, rowing was not easy. And of course, the time came when engine boats, Johnson engine boats, engines were affixed to the boats to make it easier for those who previously rowed. Well, we used to say oaring boat. You know, we change up everything, oaring boat. So I glanced back into time and I saw someone we called Old Man. Yes, I saw his slender frame sitting in his little oaring boat named Polar Bear. And I saw it as it constantly rocked in the choppy waters of the Carnage. I saw him waiting patiently on passengers. And there were other boats that idled there, but Old Man's boat caught my eye. I sat on a chair in a Nutmeg Bar and Restaurant. Well, that was a time when the best chicken snack you could ever eat was from Nutmeg Bar and Restaurant. So I sat there and cheerfully but determined to look and see what was going on. And my determined look was matched by the determined look to make a living that was stamped on Old Man's face. He sat there and continually steadied the boat with the oars while he waited. He tarried there to make an honest dollar. Sadly, I must say there are people these days who are making a dollar, but not an honest dollar. Old Man was a hard worker, and he had experienced difficult times in Grenada. He was acquainted with hardship, and his boat had pulled him through the rough times. During the periods when tourists flocked to Grenada, well, as expected, Old Man did well. The tourists loved to be taxied across the Carnage, and as I mentioned before, other people, including students from the GBSS and the Anglican High School. Then the time came, as I mentioned, when boats affixed with engines, well, they threatened to put people like Old Man out of business. Well, those who couldn't afford the fancy engines. But Old Man was a survivor in the heat of stiff competition. I quietly observed him as he sat in his water taxi. Well, these days we have fancy names for these types of boats. Water taxi. See them going from the Carnage to Grand Anse, bringing tourists these days. All those who sought a pleasant ride across the Carenage took the small boats. And of course, those who were too lazy to walk all the way around found that the boats came in handy. They found a savior in the water taxis. Indeed, it was a desirable relief from the stress one experienced dodging all those cars on the Carenage, cars and trucks and the buses on the Carenage Road. It was difficult to pull the oars. You ever tried pulling an oar or pulling oars? It was strenuous work to do so all day and to do so in the punishing heat. Boy, we had it hard. Back then, parents struggling to light coal pot to make the food ready before the students came home from school. But although it was difficult to pull the oars, it was, however, more rewarding than liming. And we see people liming, young boys liming on the streets and doing nothing. So old man sought to make money the way his parents taught him, by doing honest, hard work. I looked on as a man jumped in the boat, and the boat began to dance in the water. Old man grabbed the oars to stabilize it. Two more passengers got in, and old man settled himself and prepared to pull. I peered at him as he effortlessly leaned forward, and then he jerked himself back. The motion was easy for him after so many years of rowing, ample practice. He settled into his rowing mode. The muscles in his arms showed as he propelled himself into high gear. Beads of sweat, and of course, such a situation would cause stress. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. By the sweat of his brow, he was earning his bread, his living. Commendable. As the little boat moved, the beauty of the surrounding captivated the passengers. Now sit in a boat on the Carenage and walk in the sea and look around and just take in the beauty. They saw the Fort George on the hill and the brilliantly attired flamboyant trees in full scarlet splendor. What a sight to behold. Those with good vision spotted the Kokioko, what we call a flamboyant tree. Royal Poinciana, Kokioko, flamboyant tree, same. Saw the Kokioko hanging from the branches. They viewed the old steeples of the Anglican, Presbyterian, and Roman Catholic churches. They observed the cement and lumber workers hard at work in front of Hubbard's and other stores that line the Carenage area. They saw the men loading goods into the vessels that traveled between Grenada and the Sister Isles. But in those days, the traffickers used to load the yam and the dasheen and the tanya, all the ground provision onto those boats that we taken to Trinidad. It was a sea of activity there. But Old Man rode, and his passengers smiled. And above them, the sun was a blazing ball of fire. As the boat made its way across the Carenage, the passengers looked into the water, and they saw the mullets as the fishes, the butterfish, and other fish swimming around the clear water. They glimpsed the starfish and the speedy green eel. They saw the sea cat, octopus, with its many arms cuddled between the rocks at the bottom of the sea. And they looked on in amazement as the ballyhoo. Remember the ballyhoo? They used to tease us in school and say, when they want to demean us, that we eat ballyhoo and stale cocoa. The ballyhoo with its long snout swimming close to the boat. They noted the tourists standing on the concrete pavement near the Empire Cinema, snapping pictures of the harbor. And while their eyes roamed the surroundings, the old man's arms were pulling the oars. And then he reached the other side. The passengers paid him and got off near the fire station. Others got in, and Old Man grabbed the oars once more to pull. Hardly any rest for Old Man. He summoned his strength and prepared for the return trip. Back and forth he went all day. He paused occasionally for a quick bite or to respond to the voice of nature. But he did not get much time to relax or to rest. And then, after a hard day's work, and the sun went down, or was about to go down, to fade over the horizon, it was time for Old Man to tie his little boat. He had done his work, and he earned his pay, and he went to his home for a comfortable night rest. The following day, he grabbed the oars again. Yes, our people found ways to make a living. Anthony Wendell Dirks.